I recently watched a good video on the Autodidactic channel talking about how just 3 corporations own pretty much everything in the world. Those corporations are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. It was particularly interesting that the logos of 2 of these companies featured ships. Researcher Jordan Maxwell has an episode on the Gaia Network where he talks about maritime admiralty law, the law of the sea, and how that set of laws governs banking, commerce, and money. We can see its effects by the use of monetary terms that pertain to water, terms like liquid assets, income streams, floating a loan, drowning in debt, and the implication that banks direct the flow of currency. This metaphor of money as water programs the mind to perceive money as something intangible, something soft, slippery, uncontrollable, something we can't hold in our hands. In this poem that I wrote a few years ago, before any real study into these nautical economic terms, the image I just naturally picked to illustrate a lack of personal control was fluid money. But this is not how we should be perceiving money, the kind that represents true wealth. There are 2 forms of money that represent a duality, and we've been programmed to pick a specific side. Aristophanes referred to this monetary duality in 400 BC as adulterated money and excellent money. Today we call that same duality fiat money and hard money. The metaphor of drowning in debt is a big clue. Obviously, nobody's complaining about drowning in too much wealth, but as more debt-based fiat currency is pumped into the economy, that's exactly what happens. We drown in all the debt. It's not wealth that's made of water, it's currency. As I discuss in my book, The Next Octave, hard money is tangible. It's something you can hold in your hand. It has a specific vibration, and we can measure its frequency. Gold and silver is also called sound money. A gold coin vibrates at about 5,500 Hz, causing one study done by a French bank to conclude that counterfeits can be detected musically. Real money is a tangible supply of something that's been produced, that's been made, grown, mined, built, or harvested. Real money always refers back to a previous supply we produced or harvested earlier. The most important nautical economic term is the word tributary, a smaller river that feeds into a larger one. The word tributary is derived from the word tribal, and originally meant to divide or assign resources amongst a collective or tribe. In modern terms, tributes are more like taxes that have been legally or illegally established between a country and its citizens or between one country and another. In the 1700s, Sweden held tributary status to Denmark and was forced to pay tribute. Which leads us to wonder about the word distribute or distribute, which would mean the opposite of a tribute or tributary payment, the handing out of gifts from the governing collective to individuals. An intriguing example of the tribute metaphor is found in the Northumberland manuscript, a document that features, among other things, what seem to be signatures of Francis Bacon and William Shakespeare being practiced over and over. The specific quote on the manuscript is as follows: Mr. Francis Bacon, of tribute or giving what is due. Tributes, as taxes, are extortions that come due, but in this case the word spelling implies water. If you've read The Next Octave, you know that I focus a great deal on Plato's debt-based teaching, something I would describe more as propaganda, that it's not always necessary or just to give every man his due. It's a form of psychological programming to entrain people to accept not only a debt-based social system, but the outright failure to repay an individual what he or she is owed. Taxes come due, not what's owed to you, and that's because taxes benefit the tribe, the collective, the government. This tributary flow of money, the tributary flow, is the basis and legitimacy of government power. The elite controllers are always focused on the collective, at the expense of the individual, and that's because they want to remove the sovereign legitimacy of the individual. A river tributary is also called an affluence, a term used to describe the state of being rich. Because affluence refers to the act of flow, this is not about saved wealth. This is about having a lot of money flowing through your hands on a regular basis. This is why our culture suffers from what Oliver James called affluenza, extremely high and unnecessary levels of consumerism and overconsumption. These high levels of spending are promoted by the concept of the tributary, the obligation to spend money because it's good for the economy and it's good for your neighbors. Saving for your own needs is selfish. Instead, you must spend for the greater good. This guilt-laden message got its start when it was pushed by economist John Maynard Keynes during the Great Depression. Keynes was a British economist who worried that America and Great Britain were under-consuming. So his policies pushed expansion, growth, and consumption, and as a result, the phrase Keynesian overconsumption is a concept we're still dealing with now. And it's a concept that isn't discussed enough. The message of Keynes to both government leaders and the public was literally to spend as much money as possible. Keynes told housewives on the radio in the 1930s that saving money was dangerous and would put their neighbors out of work. He told housewives they needed to be in a mood of expansion, to do things, to buy things. In the last 8 decades, this message hasn't changed, and these are still things the government promotes today. We're told that the economic policies of Keynes were designed to help the little guy, the poor individual suffering during the Great Depression. But the elites can't rule from a philosophy of empowering the sovereign individual. That would threaten their level of control. Instead, they rule from a philosophy of centralizing the collective to make it easier to manage. The most powerful nautical economic term disseminated during the Great Depression was the phrase priming the pump, coined by Herbert Hoover. The New Deal featured intensive programming of the American people to accept and even support an idea that they had historically resisted: high spending levels, both individually and through government via the act of confiscation or redistribution. To prime a water pump, water is first poured in. So to prime an economic pump, money is first spent by the government. Priming the pump is really about spending and overconsumption above the levels a normal market would bear. If you've ever wondered why we have such a consumerist culture that's overconsuming to the hilt, this is why. The flowing money metaphor is psychological programming to cause us to perceive money as elusive and intangible, to give up our expectation of ever holding on to our money for any length of time, to prevent us from saving money. The elites punish the act of saving through taxation and inflation because they don't want money dammed up in savings. They want money to flow. Real money, however, doesn't flow because real money is not a meaningless piece of paper. Money is supply, and real money can't be simply printed to increase the wealth of more people, any more than a loaf of bread can be printed to feed more people. We can't print bread and we can't print gold, and that's the real problem the elite controllers have. They can't alchemically produce gold. Instead, they've transmuted gold into paper and sold the public on the perpetual money-losing prospect of its elusive and expensive flow away from any attempt to grasp and save it. I'm grateful for any feedback. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching.